The miraculous image of the Virgin of Pochayiv, commemorated on September 8th. The piety of a people is reflected in their church art. The veneration of icons is one means to express in a special way their religious beliefs. Icons present religious truths visually, that which in scripture and tradition is presented in words. Among all the saints, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, is closest and dearest to God. For this reason, people of faith have cultivated great and loving devotion to her as their mightiest protectress. The Mother of God distributes God's graces to everyone and everywhere, but there are certain chosen places where, by God's will, which is beyond our own ability to comprehend, she reveals her powerful and gracious assistance to those who venerate her. One of several such places in Ukraine where the Blessed Mother chose to show her motherly care for the Ukrainian people was at Pochayiv, pronounced Pochayiv, through the miraculous icon of the Mother of God. Pious pilgrims from all corners of Ukraine and people from neighboring Poland, Serbia, Bulgaria, Latvia, Russia, and other countries came to pray before the Pochayiv icon of the Mother of God. The history of the miraculous Pochayiv icon of the Mother of God began near the end of the 16th century, in 1597 to be exact, when the icon became famous for its first miracle. When and where and by whom the icon was painted is unknown. This much is known. In 1559, the Greek metropolitan, Neophyte, donated the icon to a great landowner, Anna Hoyska. As was the practice at that time, he had come from Constantinople to Ukraine to collect donations for the needs of the church. It is possible that Neophyte was of Slavic descent. This would explain the Slavic lettering on the icon. Certainly, Lady Hoyska, whose hospitality the metropolitan enjoyed, gave him a generous donation, and she in turn was rewarded with a gift of the icon, which he blessed for her. Lady Hoyska set up the icon in her household chapel and prayed before it frequently. She noticed that every so often an unexplainable glow shone forth from the icon, and it began to appear in her dreams. The servants also noticed the strange light. Lady Hoyska had a strong feeling that the icon might be miraculous, so she advised her brother, Philip Kaczynski, who was blind from birth, to pray before the icon and ask for his sight. He prayed, and his prayer was answered. He gained his sight. From that moment, Lady Hoyska had an even greater reverence for the icon, and she realized that this icon should not remain hidden away in her home. She decided then to entrust it to the nearby monastery of the Basilian Fathers and place it in their church of the Dormition of the Blessed Mother of God. The icon was transferred from Lady Hoyska's chapel to the church of the Dormition with great solemnity, in a dignified procession headed by the Bishop of Lutsk, escorted by many priests and monks, and followed by a great number of devout people. In thanksgiving for the well-being of her brother, the good lady donated generous grants of land and money to the monastery and church. The Hoyski family was very wealthy. Basil Bodanovich Hoyski, a judge of Lutsk, had died in 1557, leaving to his wife Anna all his possessions, including several villages. Lady Hoyska lived in a castle in the town of Orlia. Of her possessions, in a writ signed on November 14, 1597, Lady Hoyska donated the Mount of Pochayiv and a very large area of forests and fields to the monastery, also an annual contribution of 1/10 of the Pochayiv harvest. However, after her death in 1617, her possessions were inherited by Andrew Furley, a militant Lutheran. He took back the lands donated by Anna Hoyska and attacked the monastery itself, vandalizing it and taking away the miraculous icon. Furley was an ambitious man who worked his way up through the government ranks to become a powerful Polish magnate. He lived in the town of Kozun, near to Pochayiv. At his orders, his servants did away with the boundary lines of the Pochayiv monastery property, prevented the monks from using the water from the river, and went as far as to beat up the monks, set fire to monastery buildings, and terrorized the pilgrims who dared to come there, in order to force the Basilian monks to give up their lands. Not to give in, the monks dug a well for themselves on the mount itself. One evening in 1641, during a festive social gathering in their home, the wife of Andrew Furley, dressed up in church vestments, took a chalice in her hands and made fun of the icon. Eyewitnesses at this entertainment claim that while carrying on this foul desecration, she became mentally deranged and remained so for 19 years. This scene of the desecration by Furley's wife is depicted in a painting on the wall of the Pochayiv church, with an inscription below it stating Furley's wife was possessed by the devil for his seizing the miraculous Pochayiv icon in 1641. Not until 1644, after a lengthy struggle in the law courts, did Andrew Furley return the seized possessions and the icon of the Mother of God to the monastery. From then, the neighboring lords and landowners provided for the monastery and took protective care of the church and its precious icon. In 1649, the landowners of the village Berestsiu, Fred and Eva Domashevsky, built a large church dedicated to the Holy Trinity on the very top of the Pochayiv Mount, over the spot where a footprint was embedded in rock, known as the healing unshod footprint. From this rock flowed the healing waters of a spring, and now the spring too was enclosed by the Church of the Holy Trinity. The icon of the Blessed Mother was placed above the iconostas, and on special occasions it was lowered so that the devout pilgrims could kiss the icon. For the care of the church, the Domashevskys donated a vast sum of money, and their son later continued their patronage. Story of the Pochayiv Monastery. The Mount of Pochayiv, which is a part of the Carpathian mountain range, attracted many with its natural beauty, particularly those who looked for a place to be close to God. It is possible even that a hermitage could have existed on the Pochayiv Mount many centuries ago. In the 9th century, the territory of Moravia covered Poland, Galicia, the Carpathian region, and eastwards. The disciples of Saint Cyril and Methodius carried on their work of spreading Christianity among the Slavs throughout this territory. A handwritten account from 1732, the Monastery Skete, tells of a pious man, Turkul, who lived at the foot of the Pochayiv hill at the end of the 12th century. In 1213, a monk from Mount Athos, Father Methodius, visited Turkul and taught him the ways of monastic life. Methodius selected a tall linden tree on the hill, stripped off its bark, and on the trunk of the tree painted a picture of the Blessed Mother, the way she had often appeared in Turkul's dreams. Together they prayed. Turkul eventually followed Methodius to Mount Athos, but they returned to the Mount of Pochayiv to live there in the many natural caves they had found. Others joined them, and eventually a monastery and a church of the Transfiguration were built. Little is known of this Methodius. He may have been of Ukrainian descent, who had gone to spend some years of prayer at Mount Athos. When he returned to Mount Pochayiv, he became the prior head of the monastery. For the 25 monks who lived there, he set up a school, compiled a teacher's gospel, an explanation of the scriptures, and collected many manuscripts and wrote many spiritual essays. He died in 1228. In the year 1240, the dreaded Tartars, led by their Khan Bati, attacked Kiev and left it in ruins. Many monks from the Pechersky Monastery in Kiev fled west, and some of these found safety on the Pochayiv mountain. It may have been these fugitives who first named it Pochayiv after the river Pochayna, which flowed by their monastery in Kiev. Other people, however, claimed that the name Pochayiv came from the Blessed Mother of God herself. Still others said it came from the word chayadi, which means to hope, to expect. On April 17, 1198, the monk Turkul went to pray atop the mount, as was his custom. A shepherd, Ivan Bosky, was watching his flock close by. Suddenly, a pillar of fire appeared. The monk fell to his knees in prayer. The shepherds ran to him, and when the flame died down, they saw the Blessed Mother on the mount. When the apparition had disappeared, they saw the imprint of her right foot had been left embedded in the rock. It became known by the people as the healing unshod footprint. Water sprang up in the recess of the footprint and overflowed in streams down the hillside. It was called life-carrying creativity. Whoever drank the water devoutly or bathed in it was healed of his sickness. A song of the people has made this happening remembered to succeeding generations. Shepherds on a hill tended their flock. They beheld the Mother of God on the rock, and in remembrance of her good, leaving a footprint where she stood. Water there now flows from a spring, good health to those who believe to bring. Miracles of Pochayiv. Reports in the chronicles of the monastery at Pochayiv, dating as far back as 1616, relate many miraculous events which took place near the icon through the intercession of the Mother of God. The most renowned of these was dated July 23, 1675, during the reign of the Polish king Jan Sobieski. In 1672, the Turkish Sultan Muhammad IV was devastating the land of Ukraine. Joined in force by the Tartars from Crimea, they pillaged and burned villages and towns and slaughtered the people. The Turk and Tartar armies, commanded by the Khan, Nuruddin, had gone as far as Galicia and Volyn, leaving Zbaraz, Vizhorod, and Vaishnevets ruined in their wake. They were approaching Pochayiv, having heard that there was much gold there, left as grateful offerings at the foot of the Blessed Virgin Mary icon. The terrified people from the surrounding region gathered at the monastery for protection, but the monastery had no solid protective walls, only a high wooden enclosure or fence. Only a few Cossack fighters were on hand, and there was no expectation of help because Doroshenko and his Cossack army were near Chairin, where the Poles were defending Warsaw. The attack on the monastery lasted from July 20th to 23, 1675. Complete destruction seemed unavoidable. The monks and all the people gathered there turned to Mary then for protection and help. When the Turks and Tartars began their mass assault, the monks and faithful sang the Akafist service to the Blessed Mother of God. While they sang, the sky opened up, and in a supernatural glow, the Mother of God appeared, surrounded by a host of angels. Over the monastery and church, she spread her white mantle. To the right of the Mother of God stood the Venerable Job of Pochayiv, praying. This apparition of the Mother of God was witnessed by both the Christians and the Turks and Tartars. When the infidels continued their attack, their arrows returned to strike them, causing general confusion among the enemy. They began to flee and retreat, and at this, the monastery garrison came out and attacked the dispirited enemy in the open field. Thus did the Mother of God show her powerful protection to those who turned to her with faith. To commemorate this miracle, a small church was built and dedicated to the victorious Mother of God. The event has also been eulogized in song. A musical score was composed by Leontowicz and arranged for choir by the renowned director Alexander Koshetz. The present large church in Pochayiv was built through the generosity and benevolence of Count Mykola Potocki, known as Pan Kaniawski. His Ukrainian ancestors became Polish and changed to the Latin Rite, but he himself was not too fond of the Polish nobility. He led an idle life in his younger years, and especially in mistreatment and ridicule of the Jews. He was returning from Belts one day when suddenly his horses, for no apparent reason, were thrown into fright. They ran headlong into a field where people were working. The coach overturned, injuring both the count and coachman. Furious, the arrogant Count Kaniawski drew out his pistol and aimed it at the terrified driver, screaming, "Die, you dog!" The poor coachman turned towards Pochayiv and prayed, "Mother of God, you are radiant with your many miracles. Save me." 3 times the count tried to fire his pistol, and nothing happened. The people had calmed the horses in the meantime and were watching the frightful scene. They prayed also to the Mother of God. Count Kaniawski realized a miracle had occurred. He removed his hat and bowed towards Mount Pochayiv. Then he stepped into the coach and called out, "To the Pochayiv Mother of God." At the church, Count and coachman prayed together for a long while. Count Potocki returned to the rite of his forefathers and became a practicing Christian. For the Pochayiv Miraculous Icon of the Mother of God, he decided to build a large church. He brought in the best architects. He did not spare his finances for the building. The church was to be built on a steep precipice. The foundation, therefore, had to be extra strong. The construction, begun in 1771 and completed in 1782, cost 5 years of hard labor and a lot of money. This new church, 56 meters high, 54 meters long, and 40 meters wide, could now accommodate 6,000 people. On one of the pillars in the church, a picture depicts how Count Potocki's coachman was saved. Another miracle was witnessed during the building of the church. On June 18, 1781, at 10 a.m., a monk entered the church and shouted out, "Everyone, leave the church!" No sooner had the workers, some 200 of them, left the place, then a large supporting pillar gave way, and the ceiling fell in. Everyone there would have died, but for the protection of the Mother of God over her temple and her children. From 1721 to 1831, that is, through 110 years, 539 miracles were recorded in the monastery chronicles, which took place before the icon through the intercession of the Blessed Mother of God. These miracles are described in a handwritten collection, the Pochayiv Mountain, which has since been reprinted and also translated into Polish. Coronation of the Icon. In 1770, the Exarch of all Ukraine, the Bishop of Lutsk, Sylvester Rudnitsky-Lubashevsky, was commissioned by Pope Clement XIV to investigate the authenticity of the miracles recorded at Pochayiv. The results of his investigation the bishop presented to the Holy Father on June 24, 1770. By special decree proclaimed on May 1, 1773, the Apostolic See granted permission for the Miraculous Icon of Pochayiv to be crowned. 2 gold crowns were sent for the crowning by special messenger from Pope Clement, 1 crown for the Blessed Mother, 1 for Jesus Christ in the icon. Bishop Rudnitsky, in a pastoral letter, notified all the faithful of the volin of the special event to take place. The solemn coronation of the icon was celebrated on Sunday, September 8, 1773, on the feast of the birth of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Since the construction of the new church was not yet completed then, and the Church of the Blessed Trinity was too small for this occasion, the coronation was held in a nearby field. A large chapel was built there, and the precious icon placed in it temporarily. Besides Bishop Rudnitsky, the Bishop of Chom, Maximilian Rillo, also took part. There were more than 1,000 priests there, and about 100,000 faithful. The solemn festivities of the coronation began with a procession the day before, from the church to the chapel in the field. When the icon had been set in place on the high altar, all the people knelt down and sang, "Pid Tvoyu Milist," under your protection. The priests heard confessions throughout the night. Cannon shots resounded in the early morning, calling the faithful to the celebration. All the homes were decorated with flowers. Icons of the Mother of God were everywhere to be seen, and several triumphant gateways were set up. An honor guard of mounted cavalry, infantry, and artillery stood on guard. When the apparition of the Blessed Mother had disappeared, they saw the imprint of her right foot had been left, embedded in the rock. It became known by the people as the healing unshod footprint. The 2 gold crowns blessed and sent by the Pope were carried forward regally on cushions. Bishop Sylvester Rudnitsky had the singular honor of crowning the icon with them. Returning then to the church, the Divine Liturgy was joyfully celebrated. Over 30,000 faithful received Holy Communion that day. The people had spent the night in the field. Processions continued to arrive throughout the day from neighboring cities, towns, and villages. In Rome, meanwhile, 12 varieties of medals of the Pochayiv Mother of God were struck. Count Potocki, in 1775, published a book in Latin in the Pochayiv printing press. It gave a brief history of the coronation of the miraculous icon of the Mother of God of Pochayiv. For a time, Pochayiv was the center of large pilgrimages from near and far. The Basilican monastery housed a printing press where many books, religious and otherwise, were published for the clergy and the faithful. After the partition of Poland, the destruction of the Ukrainian Catholic Church was begun on the Ukrainian territory occupied by Russia. During the reign of Catherine II, over 8 million Catholics were forced to accept the Orthodox faith in Volyn. In the 3 Basilian provinces, Lutsk, Berest, and Pinsk, 145 monasteries were liquidated. Tsar Mykola continued the liquidation of the Ukrainian Catholic Church. He took the monastery and church in Pochayiv away from the Basilians in 1831 and gave it to the Orthodox. In 1833, the Russian Synod gave the monastery the title Laura, a monastery of the highest rank. The Basilians, it is said, when leaving Pochayiv, took with them the miraculous icon of the Blessed Mother of God, leaving a copy of the original in its place. The miraculous icon of the Blessed Mother of God of Pochayiv is painted in oils on a thick board of red pitch cypress. Such cypress grow in the Balkans, Palestine, and Italy. The icon measures 29 centimeters by 24 centimeters. The Mother of God is portrayed from her waist, holding her son on her right arm. In her left hand she holds the end of her veil, which drapes over the shoulder and foot of the child. Her head leans towards her son, a sign of her loving concern and readiness to help. The left arm of the child Jesus rests on the mother's shoulder while he blesses with his right hand. Mary's face is sad, yet beautiful. Other smaller pictures surround the mother in the original icon. On her right, the prophet Elijah and the martyr Mina. On her left, the first martyr Stephen and Reverend Abramy. Below, the pictures of martyrs Paraskevia, Katerina, and Irina. In all, 7 little icons. The lettering above the mother and son was in Greek. That to identify the saints was in Slavic.